What is up, party people? You have found your way once again to the BMR NBA Odds Show. Thank you once again for joining us. I am Jordan Sharp, riding solo today. Our guy, Junior Brown, dealing with some business. Probably will be back tomorrow, though, so don't you worry. But I am here, as always, to run you through a massive and pretty tasty NBA slate, especially some of these later games. But before we get into that, as always, we have to remind you that if you want to hit up some more NBA content, please visit bookmakersreview.com. I have an article up there about Dallas and Chicago, a game which we will touch on here momentarily. Of course, and as always, if you're watching this on YouTube, hit the like and subscribe button as well. Helps us out a lot. Hit that bell button for more NBA content. Before we get into today, though, got to recap yesterday. I mentioned my guy, Junior Brown. He gave you guys a winner yesterday. Jazz minus the points. Little testy there at the end. Hawks definitely staged a comeback. My guy, Kevin Huerter, shout out to the Terps. Absolutely went off last night. The Hawks have a ton of wing depth. It's too bad that they can't figure out their defense. They did at times last night, but obviously coming off the back-to-back just wasn't enough. I ended up thankfully having the foresight to jump on the first half of that game, which is something that Junior kind of talked me into as well. I got that at -4.5. Was very happy to see that Bogdanovic and DeAndre Hunter were also ruled questionable, eventually ruled out after that news broke as well. So got a little bit lucky there. Can't complain, though. But as somebody pointed out to me on Twitter last night, Tyrese Maxey absolutely dominated our underplay on the Philadelphia-Milwaukee game. To be honest, as I was watching that game after the first quarter, it still felt like the right play. The last three quarters of that game were basically at the pace and the defense that I expected. It was just the first quarter had 69 points and we never really recovered. The fact that we were only, 8, 9, 10 points away from cashing that line, depending on which odds you got, obviously the number was dipping down as the game went on. I got 218.5. I think it closed down at 216 somewhere after the Curry news hit, which was another thing that kind of I thought was going to help us. Apparently it did not. So thanks, props to Junior for making me split a pair yesterday. Official on the day, though, 0 for 1. Going to try to improve that here on the Wednesday slate here. Been treading water a little bit personally here for the last 3 days. I'm 3-3 on my last 6 official NBA picks. We're going to fix that, though, here in this massive slate. Let's start it off here for today, though. As I mentioned in the open, teased it just a little bit for you. The first game on today's slate is the Dallas Mavericks and the Chicago Bulls. One of the marquee matchups of this entire slate, and one that I am incredibly excited to watch for several reasons. One, just being a Bulls fan and getting juiced up, as Junior would say, as much as possible on this team, and a lot here lately as they've been really starting to play good. And now you have a tough opponent coming in with Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks, who have Kristaps Porzingis back, who do have a winning record. And I know I've been disrespecting it pretty much all year, and I am almost close to doing it again. There's just a few things slowing me down. I think the question mark number one is obviously first and foremost on the Bulls and Billy Donovan's mind is how do we stop Luka Doncic, and how do we defend this Dallas Mavericks team who now has Kristaps Porzingis back and has a few other credible options on this roster like Tim Hardaway and Jalen Brunson that are going to deserve a ton of attention. I think Billy Donovan is going to probably say we'll throw Javonte Green, probably Lonzo Ball, maybe a little bit of DeMar DeRozan on Luka. Smaller, yes, but quicker guys who are solid, if not very good defenders, and are going to hopefully be left on an island and do a somewhat good job of defending them without much help. Because I think if the Bulls can do that, they probably have the recipe for success of winning and covering this game. You're not going to stop Luka Doncic. It's impossible. It has been rarely done, if ever. You can only hope to contain him and just keep him from having a super highly efficient game with a lot of shots at the rim and where he's getting the confidence to shoot those 35-footers, step-back style, as always, and netting them. There's nothing you can do about that. So I think if you're the Bulls, I think you just put one of your best, if not the best defender on him all night, and you say, Luka, you can go for 30 tonight, but we're going to hold everybody else to only 60 or 70 points. And I think that is the recipe for this Bulls team. Can they do that? Yes. They're going to have to figure out, though, how to get some interior defense if their guys are being pulled away from the rim. And on top of that, I think this is a good matchup for Chicago just simply because they have the guys to defend the Dallas Mavericks. They're not going to be at a size disadvantage because Dallas also tends to play a little smaller. And that's one of the reasons leading me to my pick for this game here. I wrote this up for BMR, so I don't want to get too deep into it. We have a lot of games to cover, and obviously you can go to bookmakersreview.com to check this one out. But I think the Bulls take the lesser of two evils tonight and let Doncic go off and just stop everybody else. And if that's the case, I like the under here at 215.5. Bulls defense been very, very good this year. Their offense has gotten off to a little bit of slow starts, though. Their first halves have been very, very concerning. That is the one thing concerning to me, much like the Sixers game last night, is if Luka or somebody from Dallas or even Chicago goes off in the first quarter and we have 60, 65 points scored, that's going to absolutely kill this under pick. But if the Bulls are hyped up enough here at home, probably with a pretty good crowd here to see Luka tonight, I'd be very surprised if the UC crowd was not hopping this evening. If they can feed off that energy and they can play some defense from start to finish here tonight, they definitely have the horses to hold the rest of these Mavs down. The question mark is, can they do that? And can they get into the game early and often enough on the defensive end to try to do that? The last thing here before we move on, one of the reasons why I really like the under here is just the pace of this game. I think it's going to be a race to the bottom pace-wise. I don't see either one of these teams pushing the pace because I think both kind of look at the other's opposing defense as we can beat you in the half court. So that should also play a little bit towards ours as well. The Mavs defense also been getting a little bit better. They've climbed their way to 15th in the NBA in defensive rating, whereas obviously the Bulls rank 4th. And the pace, I think, both these teams playing at paces less than 100 possessions per game. So that also going to help us as well with this under pick. So as long as we don't get some crazy, 20-point Luka Doncic first quarter or first half or something like that, I think we're good with the under here. Pace-wise, it should be good. Defense, hopefully, as well. Going to take the under here at 215.5. Let's move on to a very, very fun game tonight, one that I will also be keeping my eye on. Tonight's one of those nights where you're going to want to have multiple screens, phone, tablet, maybe you have two TV screens in the same room, all of them glued to multiple games starting at around 8 o'clock tonight, because I think that's when the best ones are. And this one, Charlotte and Memphis, is going to be an absolute barn burner. One thing I know that is I'm going to have my eye on especially heavy tonight is the possibility that Dillon Brooks is back for this game. Would be making a season debut as well, so potentially on a minutes limit. But he's been practicing with the G League affiliate with the Memphis Grizzlies as well. So it's not like he's just coming in off of just not doing anything. He's been slowly getting ramped up, and that may be enough for me to lay the 4.5 here. This game, the first team to defend is going to win it. Because I've touched on this all year. These two are teams ranking the bottom 3 in defensive rating. And obviously the Hornets offense has been very good, and so is the Grizzlies at times as well. But the Grizzlies, I should say, have been slowing down their pace a lot this year. So I think those of which who think, well, this game's going to be 240 points easily, I don't disagree with you, but I will caution you to say that I think the Grizzlies would be benefited by slowing this game down because, it forces the Hornets to defend in the half court, which they're just atrocious at right now. The Grizzlies, if they play, they're going to run, don't get me wrong, off of misses, but off of Hornets makes, they're going to come in, I think, run some shot clock in this one, simply because that's the formula to beat this Hornets team. Is you wear them down and force them to defend in the second half, you basically get whatever you want. If the Grizz increase their pace, this game's going to sky over the total. Don't get me wrong. If they get pulled into a fast-paced kind of track meet style of game, you're right. It's probably going to be about 240 points. But they choose to slow down this Charlotte team, actually play some defense, possibly could go under as well. But that brings me back to Brooks. Dillon Brooks' defense and offense. His offense is good too. The dude, if you go back to look what he did in the playoffs last year, the dude was absolutely going bonkers. The Grizzlies were plus 26 points per 100 possessions with him on the court last year compared to when he's off the court. His defense, though, is infectious. Like, I feel like that may be one of the only missing pieces here, because if they get him back in the starting lineup and put DeAnthony Melton back on the bench, where he, I think, would thrive more in kind of that 6th, 7th man role and bench, the kind of lighted up option with Kyle Anderson as those kind of two bench guys that get a lot of points for the Grizz. And that gives you Bane and Brooks in the starting lineup here to defend some of these Charlotte wings that have been having extremely Charlotte guards and wings, I should say, who've been having extremely good starts to the year offensively. Then I think you have the formula here for Memphis to be a pretty good play, minus 4.5. But the thing that's keeping me off of this and just a lean at this point is, not knowing about Brooks, whether or not he's going to be a minutes limit, whether or not he comes back and plays 35 minutes tonight. The Grizzlies defense also just a little bit too questionable for me in this one. So I'm going to pass for now. Definitely keeping my eye on Dillon Brooks, though, whether or not he's going to get ruled out or is continue to be questionable, maybe a game time decision as we lead up towards 7, 8 o'clock. Let's move on to another game that I have my eye on. I know a lot of people are thinking this one's just going to be a walk in the park, but this is another one of those where just screams trap to me. Because the Indiana Pacers laying -3 with the Nuggets missing their 3 best players, one of which who hasn't played all year, and then obviously Porter Jr. being out with a back injury and Jokic being suspended. I'm still having a hard time kind of laying the 3 points with the Pacers on the road. I'll get to that in just a minute. First off, the main reason is just Malcolm Brogdon being questionable. I think that's a tough loss for them on both sides of the ball if he can't give it a go tonight. So that's kind of the main glaring thing staring into my way. But the other two things are essentially what I've been harping on, and everybody around here has been harping on this Pacers team for the last 2 years, is their defense and rebounding. Their rebounding's improved a little bit this year, but it's still bottom half of the league. It's still pretty evidently lacking. And of course, their defense, especially on the road, has just been atrocious this year. Pacers, I think, 1-5 straight up on the road. They have the 27th ranked defensive rating on the road this season, even against the hobbled Nuggets team. Like they're going to have problems. Like I don't see the Nuggets scoring a ton of points tonight. But I mean, this Pacers team, unless they have some sort of burst in confidence or a complete change in road defense from what they've shown in their first 6 road games, Nuggets are still going to have 105, 110 points tonight. And that's another point that brings you to the total here. This could be actually a sneaky over spot. I haven't gotten there yet, and I need to do a little bit more research on this. But this is something I was looking at right at the beginning of the show. The Nuggets are going to be forced to essentially play really, really small in this game. You got the 2 Greens, JaMychal and Jeff Green, are probably going to play a lot of center minutes tonight. Aaron Gordon probably going to get a little bit of center run as well. But those 3 guys are your front court. Like, I don't think Bol is even with the team. I don't know. That's another thing I got to look at. But even if he was, I don't think he's going to get minutes tonight because the Pacers, that present a lot of problems in the front court, are going to be a complete bear on that side of the ball defensively for this Nuggets team, because they're going to have a real hard time scoring inside and grabbing offensive rebounds with Sabonis and Miles Turner. Even with the Pacers being bad at rebounding so far this year, their offensive rebounding has been very good. The Pacers might just dominate second chance points here in this game, and that may be enough to get them to cover at 3 points. But that defense just scares me. I think the small ball lineup for the Nuggets, if they speed things up and get a lead here early, the Pacers, as I mentioned before, not the kind of type of team that plays well from behind. They obviously have the better star power. They got the better lineup. They seem like they're valued only 1 possession favorites here on the road, but still concerns me just a little bit. I need to know if Brogdon's going to be in, and the questions it's not going to be answered, unfortunately. Are the Pacers going to be able to play any defense here? I think they will. I don't want to overthink this too much, but the one thing I think that's going to leave me, the main thing that's going to keep me away from the spread is I just think that there may be better options, maybe on the prop side of things. Like I mentioned, Sabonis, Miles Turner, some of the other wings here for the Pacers, potentially on rebounding props tonight, because the Nuggets are going to be so undersized, could be a method that you could go for this evening. A lot of ways you could go without just having to lay the 3 points with the Pacers and cross your fingers that they're going to play defense tonight. So I think that that's probably the route I'm going to go if I do make a play on this game, but I haven't gotten there just yet. I do have 2 officials. I've obviously given you just one. I'll give you another one here at the end of the show, but this one's another one I'm kind of close on. The one thing obviously that's keeping me away from this is that they haven't released the props yet. So that's the other thing that's kind of like I've been looking, but right before the show, about an hour ago, actually, I looked and they still weren't out for this game. Books are probably going to be really, really careful with this one because they're probably still trying to figure out who's going to get the most minutes tonight, who's going to be called up for the Nuggets tonight potentially. So who's going to get what's the rotation going to look like? Not really evident at this point just yet. So the books have been a little bit scared on the props. Just release them, guys. I won't hammer you too hard on Sabonis rebounds over tonight. Let's move on. Another very nice game. The Golden State Warriors and the Minnesota Timberwolves. This game is one of those where I kind of feel like it's a similar spot to where we've been with a couple of these other games where I bet the under and lost, especially the last one where I bet the under with Golden State Atlanta, is that I just cannot trust the Minnesota Timberwolves to defend here. And this is one thing that I think that we talk about on the show a lot, but it needs to be said here, especially early in the year in this kind of first 10 to 20% part of the season, which we're currently in right now, is that regression from a hot start back to the mean is going to happen a lot. I think we talked about this last time, at least when I was doing the show solo, was the regression of the lack of scoring and the pace being up so much. I think that was kind of a little bit skewed, and I think that the regression to the means headliner for this slate, this big slate that we have, is the Minnesota Timberwolves defense. After really a kind of understandable but kind of very surprising start to the year defensively, now over the last 5 games, the Wolves have allowed 111 points per 100 possessions, 22nd in the NBA. These are the Wolves we know. Now, I don't want to completely throw D'Angelo Russell under the bus because they have other factors involved in this as well. But D'Angelo Russell being back is not helping it. And if the Wolves tonight don't defend and they decide they're going to get into a shootout with the Golden State Warriors, they're going to lose by double figures. And B, Golden State's probably going to score 125 points tonight. Because if we don't get the Wolves defense from the beginning of the year, the Wolves have no chance of covering, and the total has no chance of going under here. So that's kind of what's keeping me away from this one here. Is it's much like I can't trust the Pacers on the road to play defense, I definitely cannot trust the Minnesota Timberwolves to play defense here either. Like, if I can't trust the Pacers to play defense on the road tonight, I 100 times can't trust the Minnesota Timberwolves. So there's that. I think if that happens, though, I think you're looking at maybe the Golden State Warriors being undervalued here at 7. That seems like it's a little bit too short, and I know that, you know, the Warriors may not take the Wolves too seriously tonight, and that could be kind of one of the things that's keeping me away from this as well, from the covering spot or from the cover spot from a Golden State Warriors perspective. But for me, I think it's probably another one where I might just look at the props and try to stay away from the spread and total and not have to worry about that kind of stuff this evening. It's just there's so many question marks that I have on the Wolves side of the ball. Not so much on the Warriors, but definitely the Wolves side of the ball, where I'm kind of going to stay away. Also, though, I think from the Warriors' perspective, them trying to stop Karl Anthony Towns is going to be very difficult tonight. I don't think they're going to be able to stop him tonight. So that's another that may be the central prop that I'm looking at, because if the Wolves stay in this game, Karl Anthony Towns got to have a big game. Him or Russell or Edwards all probably have to have a big game if they want to win it outright or even cover. So if you think the Wolves are a good kind of bet plus the points tonight, which I don't know many who are on that side of things yet, but if you do, I know they're out there. I would probably just lay off and go with the props, one of the props on those guys as well. Let's move on to the last game of the evening. Another one that's just, if it wasn't for all these damn injuries, it would be extremely tasty. But this is kind of the central theme of this game here between the Lakers and the Miami Heat, is that I don't know who's going to play. How can I make an accurate prediction on this game if I don't know who's going to play? Because you have the Lakers, who we know are without LeBron James, but who also have, you know, a couple guys, namely Austin Reeves, who's questionable tonight on their side of the ball. Not so much important, but mostly on the Heat side of things. Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero are questionable. I saw a very funny joke. Now I'm blanking on who to attribute it to, but I think it was Underdog Fantasy actually, where they had Tyler Hero still running from Nikola Jokic questionable tonight, which I thought was very funny. But he's obviously a big part of this second unit. But Bam Adebayo is going to be the big one here this evening. I think the Heat could win this game still on the road without Tyler Hero tonight. They are not winning this game on the road by margin without Bam Adebayo. It's as simple as that. If he can't play, which I know I think he's been listed as questionable a couple times with this knee bruise issue, and he ends up playing. So I don't want to read too much into that. But combined with Hero, and I forgot to mention PJ Tucker as well, also questionable. There's 3 of your top 6 players questionable tonight. Tough to really get involved with laying points on the road with anybody when 3 of their 6 best players are injured. So, like I said, I don't try to overthink too many things. And when I see an injury report like this, it just scares the crap out of me. And it's another one of the reasons why you're probably not going to get prop options till late when we get news on some of these guys here, maybe in the 3, 4, 5 o'clock hour Eastern time. 4 or 5 hours before this game starts. So that's another one of the things that's kind of just I don't know who's going to play. I can't tell you who the 10 starters are going to be at this current point in the day. And until I can do that, it's hard for me to make a play. I mean, if all those guys for the Heat are in, right? If Bam's in, if Hero's in, if everybody's not ailing, even with Morris out, obviously, with whiplash, which I just can't get over. I still find that funny, some of the screen grabs that we've seen from the Jokic and Markieff Morris incident. But if they have their guys healthy, they should win this game. They should win it by margin. But I just can't get into the mode of betting my money on something where I don't know who's going to play, especially where it's a late in the evening game and there's a ton of other options on the slate. I'm just not going to get into it. Before we run over some of the picks, I know we missed all the 7 o'clock games. They're all kind of meh, to lack of a better term. I do want to touch on just a couple, though. The main 2 being Washington and Cleveland and Toronto, Boston. Washington seems like a pretty good value here. I know I'm a big Cavs stan and have been for most of the year, and I think Ricky Rubio is going to fill in pretty well for Colin Sexton here, at least on the offensive end. But another one of the things here is regressing back to the means of Cleveland defense, where Washington's kind of staying good, if not above average here. So I really think that the Wizards probably would be a strong lean for me at this part of the day at -3. But if you guys watch the show enough, you know I really, really hesitate to lay points on the road unless it's the exact right spot. So probably not going to get there. But I think the Wizards are for real. I've said that on the show before. And another one, like I said, Toronto, Boston. Jaylen Brown being out is going to hurt this team pretty badly. And Toronto has been perpetually undervalued, and now they have Pascal Siakam back, and you're telling me you're taking 2.5 points with a team that should potentially be a pick-em here in this game with Boston's injury situation. Also kind of leaning towards the road team in that one. I know Toronto's going to defend. I know that for a fact. So it's really just a matter of if Boston can make up for the lack of Jaylen Brown with guys like Dennis Schroeder, Marcus Smart stepping up, obviously Jason Tatum taking a much bigger slice of the offense. Is that going to help, or is that going to play right in Toronto's hands because that's where they are good defensively? And they're another one of these teams that I think the Boston is another one of these teams where the small ball kind of hurts them a little bit going against that, I should say. And so I do feel like Boston potentially could be a fade tonight without Jaylen Brown. That's going to hurt them for the next couple of weeks. I know there's a couple games we didn't touch on. Just too much to get through here this slate, obviously. Let's move it on to the picks here, and we'll wrap it up for the day. I got two officials for you. One we've talked about already, and that's the under here in Dallas and Chicago at 215.5. I actually got it at 216 at my book, but I think market-wise it's 215.5, so we'll go with that for the show. As long as the Chicago Bulls don't get bogged down in the first half here and allow Luka and some of these Mavs to get off a bunch of open threes, I think the under is a pretty good play here because this pace should just plummet in the second half if the game's close and it's not been completely wild in the first half. So like that play, that's the main one of the day. One we haven't talked on, and I will touch on just briefly here in this game, is Sacramento heading into San Antonio. I think Rajon Holmes is an excellent prop pick tonight. I haven't given out a prop pick in a while, but this one caught my eye for a few reasons. One, San Antonio's not been very good at defending bigs already this year, and on top of that, they're still without Jakob Poeltl, and so Rajon Holmes is usually like 9 out of every 10 games Rajon Holmes plays, he's going against somebody who's bigger than him at center, right? He's a pretty small center. It's not that he's not big and strong, and the dude just absolutely has one of the quickest jumps I've ever seen. But he can get up and grab rebounds with the best of them. And I think tonight, going up against a much, much, much smaller San Antonio team who's probably going to have to play Drew Eubanks a lot against him, give me all of Rajon Holmes' points, rebounds, and assists prop tonight at 25.5. I think he has 15 and 15 tonight pretty easily if he plays 30 minutes and this game stays close, which all intents and purposes the spread is telling us it will definitely be close tonight at one point. I think pick and roll wise, they're going to have trouble stopping him. I think that he's going to have a ton of at least 3 or 4 offensive rebounds tonight. Dude is just a monster, and especially when he's going to be the biggest guy, if not one of the biggest guys on the floor the whole time. Yeah, I'm feeling good about that one. That's almost my top play of the day here, but I like the under Mavs Bulls too. So we got two co-top plays for you this evening. As always, thank you for joining us here. I think Junior will be back with me tomorrow for the short slate on a Thursday for Veterans Day, so look forward and stay tuned for that, obviously. Same time, same place tomorrow, 12:30 Eastern Time, 9:30 a.m. Pacific. Of course, as always, I know I've mentioned it a few times, but go visit bookmakersreview.com if there's any games that you want covered, any insight that you think you need that I haven't touched on here today. I know there's a few games that I haven't touched on. Go ahead and head over to bookmakersreview.com. Definitely look into those, and you'll get some great sharp NBA picks from a lot of other really, really smart guys. So for myself, I'm Jordan Sharp. Obviously, Junior Brown will be back tomorrow. Thanks to those at BMR, and until always, best of luck on all your NBA picks here on this Wednesday slate.